Everybody, buckle up for a wild ride as we dive into Crescent City Book 3, House of Flame and Shadow. Now, I've got to spill the tea. This book wasn't quite the grand finale I had imagined after the first mind-blowing installments. But hey, we're still in it for the roller coaster of emotions. I fell head over heels for Bryson Hunt in Crescent City 1. The modern setting, the mysterious horn, and those unforgettable side characters had me hooked. The endings of the first two books? Pure literary fireworks. But then came House of Flame and Shadow. It didn't quite reach the sky-high expectations I'd built up during my 2-year wait. Don't get me wrong, there are some gems in there, but not as many as you would have liked. In this episode, we are going to dissect the plot, dive into the characters, and unravel the themes of the book. Stick around, because even if it didn't blow my mind, there's still plenty to unpack and enjoy in this latest chapter of the Crescent City Saga. So let's get into it. The main conflict of this book is simple: annihilate the Asteri. There was a whole lot of subplots, like 15 of them. So I think the best way to break down this plot is by giving the shortest summary of the whole book. Let's see if I can do it in 5 minutes. You can time me. Ready, set, go. Bryce, in the end of the book, is in Prithian, and she is with Rhys. She is being interrogated by Az, Rhys, and Armin. They don't get anything out of her, so Bryce returns back to her cell. Bryce then follows her heart, literally, and escapes through the creepy door in the bottom of her jail cell, and ends up in some unknown tunnels under Prithian. There she meets Nesta and a hidden Az. They run into a Midgard worm, then Bryce cuts herself to trap Az and Nesta with the worm so she can explore the caves by herself. Nesta uses the mask to defeat the worm, and Az brings her back by reminding her of Cassian. Aww. The three of them then find a cave that housed Thea's daughter. Bryce gets a history lesson and decides that she hates all Fae, and she doesn't think that they deserve happiness. Then a secret door opens and they find an Asteri. Bryce uses the Star Sword and the Truth Slayer to help slow the Asteri. Then Nesta uses her creepy death magic to kill it. Then Bryce gets juiced up. She steals the Truth Slayer and goes to talk to her dad. While she's there, she learns if she fuses the sword and the dagger together, it creates a black hole. She also learns that Hunt and Rune had escaped, and she goes to find them. Meanwhile, Lydia has been trying to break Rune and team out of jail. They had been tortured by Pollux, and with the Harpy being magically brought back to life, Lydia is now on a timeline to get them out before she's found out. Lydia teams up with Rune's friends, Ethan and Therion, to get Rune and the gang out of jail. Ethan wants to save Therion, and he ends up having to fight Sigrid to get him out. Ethan then kills Sigrid, but saves Therion, and Ketos goes with Declan to help save Rune. Ethan was supposed to save them, but ends up going out of the House of Flame and Shadow to find the Necromancer to save Sigrid. Hunt and Rune and Baxian are rescued, and they're on their way to the super secret submarine. On their way, they are found out by a hellhound, and Lydia goes to fight him. She almost gets away when she is shot. Therion finds her and brings her back to the boat, and all of them manage to escape. Rune is conflicted on how to feel about Lydia. He loves her, but she's done so many bad things. Then Therion, Baxian, and Hunt are summoned to the Ocean Queen, when who appears but Bryce? Bryce tells the Queen that they are going to the old Faeland that is surrounded by mist. This feels very familiar to the creepy cave in Prithian. Bryce and Hunt are reunited, and Bryce yells at Hunt that he better be on her team or else. We learn that Lydia has had 2 sons that have been raised by the world's best dads. This, of course, changes the way that Rune feels about Lydia, and Lydia's okay with that, kinda. Meanwhile, Ethan is working for Jessica when Hypaxia shows up, and she's all hurt, and she's lost everything. Celestina, her coven, all of it. And now she has sworn her life to the Underking. Bryce and the gang end up in Avalon, and they get off the submarine, and Therion jumps off the sub as well, which is ill-advised since everyone wants him dead. In Old Fae World, the group has split up into 2 teams, Team Cave and Team Library. However, before they can get to the places, Bryce has to deal with her awful uncle. She makes a deal that if she can explore the caves and the library, she will give him the Autumn King's journal. Also, Therion proposes to Flynn's sister, and now they have to be married. While the gang is exploring the caves below Avalon, Lydia and Rune realize that they love each other. Bryce leads the group through the tunnels, and they find their lair of sister number 2. Hunt and Bryce drink some crazy potion and go to hell. They talk to the princes, and they make a plan. Then, when they come out of the crazy dream, they go back to the Avalon world, and they are attacked by the Autumn King and the Avalon King. Rune and Lydia realize something is up, and they go to help find him. Bryce is fighting the kings with Hunt and Baxian when, bam, Bryce is on her back almost being murdered by the Autumn King. Then Rune comes out of nowhere and kills their dad. Then Bryce kills her uncle, and they go to liberate the island. When the island is liberated, it is beautiful, and all of the old buildings get destroyed. Also, there are flying horses that are mentioned, and then we never see them again. Oh, I forgot that Hunt learns that his dad is a demon and that he is literally a creation. But that doesn't matter because it basically gets swept under the rug. Ethan is trying to bring Sigrid back to life. They bring her back as a zombie reaper, which is disgusting, but Hypaxia thinks she can save her if they have Thunderbird lightning. So they make a course to Avalon. On their way, the human world is attacked by the Asteri, and they kill mass amounts of people to make a point to Bryce. Then Hypaxia and Ethan travel to Avalon. Then everyone ends up back together in Avalon, where Bryce is now queen since there are no other heirs. Fury brings Jupiter and their mom in a sweet helicopter. Also, Hypaxia and Ethan show up, and they are tasked with creating a cure for the parasite for the Asteri. They take some of Hunt's lightning, and then they're on their way. Now everyone goes on their own little side quests to get ready for the final battle. Therion goes with his fiancée to the River Queen, and that ends up going surprisingly well. She allows a bunch of people to come seek refuge in her kingdom. Lydia and Rune go to recruit Isaiah and can't find him, but learn that Pollux has taken Lydia's sons, so she's anxious to get back to them. Then we have our 2 most exciting storylines. Let's start with Hypaxia and Ethan. Hypaxia miraculously finds a cure to the disease. She even remarks on how quickly she was able to find the cure, but she has to use all the lightning, so there's no way to save Sigrid. Then Ethan wants to talk to Connor, so he and Hypaxia go to the Underking. Connor isn't able to talk, but he is trying to give something to Ethan. Then Ethan and the Underking get in a fight, and Hypaxia kills the Underking. With the Underking dead, Hypaxia allows Connor to explain that they have made a god bullet, and to get it to the sharpshooter Bryce. Then the best part of the whole book, or at least it's my favorite part. Ethan goes to recruit the wolves for the war. He is a bit awkward with some of the wolves since he's bringing a zombie Sigrid home with him, but he gains access to the compound. Then the Prime says that Ethan should be Prime instead of Sabine. Sabine kills her father for saying something like that, and then Ethan, with his newly awakened powers, kills Sabine while Sigrid feeds on the Prime. Not sure that was necessary, but then Ethan becomes Prime. But most of the wolves choose to get out of Dodge instead of fighting with Bryce & Co. So he goes to the Asteri city alone, though he stops by to talk to Hypaxia, and she really wants to come, but he urges her to stay and help heal people. The last setup comes with Bryce and Hunt at the border between worlds. Bryce opens the portal to the world of Akatar, and Nesta is there with Cassian. Bryce convinces her to give her the mask and leave her parents as collateral to keep them safe. Then Bryce opens the portal to Hell, and the princes are there as well, as Hell's warriors, and now the battle is ready to begin. The battle is pretty epic. Bryce kills one of the Asteri with her blade, and it almost wipes her out. The princes of Hell step in to fight the rest of the Asteri. Meanwhile, Lydia and Rune are trying to find her boys. They're getting close when Rune shoots her to get her out of the fight. What? Then Rune fights Pollux, and Therion shows up to help Lydia. Therion finds Ethan, and Ethan gives Lydia some of the bacterium-killing elixir. Lydia then heals and goes to kill Pollux herself. So cool. It's like she's literally alien in this moment. After Ethan gives Lydia the potion, he goes to find Bryce and give her the god bullet. Bryce is fighting Regulus and losing. Then Ethan gets her the god bullet, tells her the significance, and makes himself scarce. Bryce was intending to use the God Bullet on Regulus, but remembers the container full of First Light and goes to attack that instead. Regulus tells her that if she blows that up, she will blow up the entire planet. She still chooses to shoot the container, creating a sort of black hole that conveniently sucks up all the Asteri first. Then, with the last of her strength, she summons another black hole that sucks her in. The whole black hole thing was really confusing. However, this means that Bryce is also stuck in the black hole and losing oxygen, and Regulus is using her as an anchor to try to get back as well. Hunt finds Ethan and sees Bryce in the black hole. He's told he can't save her, but he jumps into a mech and goes to end Regulus and save Bryce. He brings Bryce back, but unfortunately, she didn't make it. Now to the resolution. This next part was probably my second favorite part of the book. Jessica looks at Apollyon and asks her to transfer her curse onto Bryce and give her more time instead. This was such a beautiful moment. I will get back to this more later. Then Bryce and the gang send the princes of hell back to their legions, which seems really convenient, and Bryce goes back to Nesta and gives her the mask. When Bryce takes her parents back, Nesta and Ember have a sweet parting moment when all is set right. At the end, we see Queen Bryce and the gang setting up their new world. Each leader is taking their new place and establishing their space. And we get set up for the next book, which I'm assuming will be called The House of Many Waters. And Tharion's new fiancée disappears to find her long-lost love, and Tharion is reunited with his dragon friend Ari. So, now that we reviewed the plot, let's talk about character development. I have to start with Bryce because Maas did my girl dirty. Bryce was one of my favorite characters. She is a ball of sass, and her one-liners are priceless. But because of some undealt with trauma, Bryce takes all her anger out on the Fae. This feels like a step backwards in Bryce's character development. Yes, she has always been a tough, smart mouth, but in this book, Bryce's anger affects her ability to see things clearly. She also seems to take it out on Hunt. On their first reunion, she tells him that he needs to be on Team Bryce. It's her way or the highway. She does eventually apologize for this, but it's kind of like a half apology. I love a strong woman, but she shouldn't railroad over Hunt's feelings like that. Now, Bryce does eventually have a come to Jesus and realize that she's been unfair to the Fae. This is in part of her conversation with Sathya, and in part from her own musings. She does realize that not all the Fae are bad, and that she could make some real change as their leader. Bryce was a dynamic character in this book because she's able to deal with her drama and grow. However, I do feel like she went backwards and then ended up back in the same place she started, so it almost feels like she's a static character. What did you think about Bryce in this book? I know some people were bothered by her in this book, and I need to know why, so make sure you let me know. The next character I'd like to discuss is Hunt. Now, once again, I feel like Hunt is a stock character that only exists to be Bryce's mate. Maas has given him this compelling backstory of pain and losing everything, and it feels like Bryce makes him shove those feelings under a rug. In this book, he learns about his father and how he is a creation of his father and a prince of hell, and Maas doesn't really give him time to process this revelation. Instead, he gets told by everyone, Bryce and Baxian, how to feel about it. They say it doesn't matter who your parents are, you're a product of your own thoughts and actions, which is great in sentiment, but I would have loved to see Hunt explore his own feelings. Maybe we'll get to see with him deal with that in book 4, but I highly doubt it. All that being said, Hunt is an excellent partner to Bryce. He always stands up for her, and he's always there to catch her when she falls. His love for her is admirable. My favorite Bryce and Hunt moment is when Bryce is fighting the Stag King, and someone asks Hunt if he is going to help, and he says, "Nah, she's got this." Now, I couldn't find the direct quote for this, so I could have made it up, but that moment made me smile. Hunt trusts Bryce and knows her power. I love that Hunt is someone who lets Bryce be who she is and does not try to change her or bring her down. To me, Hunt is a static character. He isn't really given a chance to grow. Now let's talk about Tharion. I'm surprised by how many people out there hate Tharion. I personally love him. Yes, he's a bit annoying and a little bit arrogant. He gets caught up in his own head, and he's not really able to see clearly his own self-deprecation. Brooding male does seem to be how SJM deals with all of the men exploring emotion in her books. Yeah, we see this with Therion, we see it with Hunt, we see it with Rune, we see it with Ethan, all of them brooding, and we see it in all the other books too. But I do love that she can laugh at herself. Here's an example. You could talk to her, Flynn said, beside Rune, shutting yet another useless drawer full of catalog cards. I can literally feel your brooding. I'm not brooding. You're brooding, Declan said from Rune's other side. You're brooding, Rune said, nodding to Dec's stout face. I just love that she's making fun of the brooding. She recognizes it. Now back to Therion. We're going to skip talking about him until he meets Sathya and Avalon. Him saving Sathya from her fate of being married to one of those terrible Feo males is what gets Therion out of his funk. He sees an opportunity to save someone like him from a mistake that he made. I also think that these two make a good pair. I hope that he gets her back in House of Many Waters, but we'll see. Now, what I noticed about Therion's story that I hadn't noticed before is how there are so many powerful women after him. The Viper Queen, the River Queen, Jessica, the Ocean Queen, and Sabine. Wow, that's so many powerful women. I'll talk about this a little later on. I love the discussion between Therion and the River Queen. I think it's important for his character growth because we're able to see that Therion is able to gain the River Queen's respect back. She sees how he helped Sathya and how he's put other people before himself. His humility and acts of valor help to save the humans in the area, which is great redemption arc for him. Ethan is another character that people don't love, and I honestly don't understand him. I love Holstrom and his moral compass. He stands up for the people in his life, and he doesn't run from a challenge. Now, like Therion, Ethan has his brooding chapters when he's dealing with the fallout of freeing Therion and killing Zegrid. However, I didn't find his actions annoying. He was just trying to save a friend and do what is right. Maybe deep down he was ignoring a higher calling, or he felt like he wasn't a worthy leader of the wolves. But I'm glad he's able to come to the conclusion that he could be a strong leader. He also gets ice power, which reminds me of Rowan from the Throne of Glass series. I couldn't help but smile that connection was made in this book. Ethan does seem to get a bit lost at the end, and I hope that we get to see more of him in book 4. I really think he's going to be a great prime. I wanted to quickly discuss Nesta's part in the book. I think that Nesta is the perfect character to deal with Bryce because of their shared experience. Both of them know what it's like to be human and loathe the Fae. Both of them have incredible powers with dark backgrounds, and both women don't take crap from anyone. I love the interaction between these two and can see them becoming friends under different circumstances. Or maybe they just always butt heads. I also love the interaction between Ember and Nesta. Losing her mother at such a young age was difficult for Nesta, and if anyone can understand her, it would be Ember. She's already the mother of a headstrong, powerful woman, and she must have insights that could help Nesta. I think the addition of Nesta really helped to elevate the novel. Now let's explore Rune. For me, Rune and Lydia made this book. Their stories were far more compelling to me than Bryce and Hunt. And I've always been on Team Rune, so I might be a bit biased. In this book, Rune is dealing with the knowledge that the woman he loves is the Hind. Lydia has done some terrible things, and he's not sure he can forgive her. Then he learns that Lydia has 2 sons, and he decides to forgive her for all her wrongdoing. Lydia does point this out, and then Lydia and Rune dance around each other, mostly avoiding each other until they get to Avalon. Then they finally have a heart-to-heart and find love. I'm glad they found their way back to each other. Rune's other big moment in this book is when he saves Bryce by killing their father. This was a big moment for Rune, and again, it was kind of swept under the rug. Lydia does ask him how he feels about it, but I would have liked to see that explored just a little bit more than, oh, my father was a terrible man. So again, another missed opportunity for character development. It was an epic moment for him to save his sister, but ultimately, it just should have been better. Now, this is the time to talk about the strangest moment in this whole book. When Rune shoots Lydia. Why? I do not feel like this is in Rune's character. While he's protective, he has worked so hard to bring up Bryce and help her grow. It seems so out of character for him to just say, Lydia, nope, you can't fight. It does lead to Lydia getting her fire powers, which were truly awesome, but I don't feel like it was necessary for him to shoot her. I feel like he has more trust in Lydia and her skills than that. Now, I understand that he cares for her and her sons, but that's no excuse. That's not how Rune is. Do you agree with me? Let me know. For me, Rune was another static character. He did open his heart to Lydia and grow up, but I don't think he changed all that much. He didn't question his core values or do much introspection. I'd love to see more of that from him, just like Hunt. Like, cut Therion and Ethan out of this book and put them in the next one. And have more chance for Rune and Hunt to grow. Would have been nice. Now to the moment we've all been waiting for, the best character in this whole novel, Lydia. Since learning that Lydia is Day, I have been a huge Lydia fan. Even before we knew she was on Team Rebellion, I thought she was so cool. But her being part of the rebellion was just icing on the cake. In this book, Lydia only proves her worth. I loved her added backstory. It gives Lydia more heart. The awkward moments with her son and their adopted fathers was one of my favorite scenes. Now, this could be because I myself was adopted, so I could imagine what this moment would have felt like, but I think this whole topic was well handled and realistic. I also loved the nod to Throne and Glass, with Brannon named after an ancient ancestor. I do not foresee the Throne of Glass and Crescent City collab, but it's fun to see that these worlds are blended together. Lydia is an important character throughout the novel. Her presence seems to instill fear in the King of Avalon, and her and Bryce seem to be fast friends. I'm glad that the Ocean Queen gives Lydia a reason to stay with Bryce and Rune, but I wonder if she would have stayed with them on her own doing without orders. Now, I do love Lydia's Mama Bear moment at the end of the novel, though I do wonder how Pollux got his hands on her boys. Did the Ocean Queen just be like, yep, you can have them and it'll save my people? I could really see her doing that. It's much better for her people that Lydia's sons are gone than all of her people dying. Lydia is amazing. I just love her. Now, there's some characters I'm sad we didn't just see more of. I'm always sad that we do not see more of Ember. She's obviously an amazing woman, and we get to see that since she helped Nesta with the short amount of time that she had with her. But she's a side character that I would love to meet. I am also sad that we didn't get to see more of Fury. She didn't play a role in this book at all. She flew a helicopter. Maybe she'll get her own side novel, fingers crossed. That is something I would love to read. However, I do love the way that the side characters turn into main characters in this book. I know many people were annoyed with Therion and Ethan, but I am not one of them. So let's move to themes. The first thing I'd like to discuss is the power of women. Women in this series are a force. I'm not sure how I missed this. There's the Ocean Queen, the Viper Queen, the River Queen, Sabine, Jessica, Hypaxia, Celestina. That is so many powerful women. In comparison to Maas's other novels, the portrayal of women's strength in this book is both impactful and incredibly cool. I understand why there weren't as many powerful women in her other stories since they were set in an older time period and in a more patriarchal system. So it's fun to see a modern setting with so many powerful female characters. I also love that even though these leaders are women, that they're not perfect. All of the people in this world have been corrupted and manipulated by the Asteri. I'm excited to see the changes in leadership after the leadership is gone. Also, I would be remiss if we didn't discuss the power that Bryce gains in this book. Bryce gains a whole lot of power when she goes to Prythian, and then even more power in Avalon. And then even more power when she gets the mask from Nesta. That is one powerful lady. This is not unique for female heroines. in the SJM universe, but I do love that Bryce uses her power for good, and she doesn't let all that power corrupt her. I also love how the men in her life empower her instead of fear her. Both Hunt and Rune are unquestionably Team Bryce. One of my favorite quotes that shows this is when Bryce says, "I'm sick and tired of people using girl as an insult." This is what Bryce says to the Sag King when he and the Autumn King come to fight them. I thought it was such a powerful moment. Bryce's sassy attitude and modern sentiment make her the perfect new queen of the Fae after she literally takes down the patriarchy. There is no statement more powerful than that. The next topic I'd like to discuss is sacrifice. Always in war, there has to be sacrifices on one side or the other. Now, in this book, it does feel a bit one-sided, but many humans die before Bryce meets the Asteri. But no main characters die with the exception of Jessica. Let's talk about Jessica's sacrifice for Bryce. I love this moment because it was so touching. Jessica is willing to give up her life to save Bryce after Bryce sacrifices her life for the planet. Does it take away from the power of Bryce's sacrifice? Maybe, but it was still a beautiful moment. Bryce didn't think that Jessica really cared for her, but Jessica took Bryce in. She gave her a place after her friend died, and I'm sure she had ulterior motives for Bryce being around, but she does give Bryce a very expensive pendant to keep her safe. Jessica was almost like a big sister to Bryce, and her sacrifice was beautiful. We should also note Hunt's continual sacrifice for Bryce. Hunt has already given up his whole life for a first rebellion, and he has to put aside his own feelings to fight for what is right. It must be difficult for him to do this after losing everyone, yet he is willing to do so. This admirable sacrifice is something that we should not overlook. Last in the category of sacrifice, we have Lydia. Being a mother is always a sacrifice, but being willing to give up your child so they can have a better life is such a difficult sacrifice. Ultimately, it was the best choice for Lydia's boys, but then she had to continue to pay for that sacrifice. She had to make sure her boys were safe, so she went to work for the Ocean Queen to make sure no one knew who they were. She sacrifices her own soul for her son's safety. This selfless sacrifice was beautiful. I think the takeaway for all these sacrifices that is we sacrifice everything for the people we love. I rated this book 4 out of 5 stars. While there were things I didn't love about it, yes, but it was still an excellent read. Maas's ability to weave stories together and create worlds is incredible, and her relationship building and her ability to make relatable characters is unmatched. I think that the pacing of this novel was perfect. There was a balance between action, plot, and romance that is perfect for the ending of an epic trilogy. I hope you enjoyed this episode of According to Your English Teacher. I would love if you left this podcast a review. It would mean the world to me. Also, your engagement with this video helps people to find it. So if you want to give it a thumbs up, if you want to share it with your friend, any of that would be fantastic. Before I sign off, I'd like to leave you with one final quote. The friends they make were what mattered in the end, not the enemies. Through love, all is possible. Love that ties the whole series together. This episode was written by me, Sam Gunther, and edited by Dallin Gunther. The music was composed by Tom Brinton. If you want to know what I'm currently reading, make sure you find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Goodreads. Tune in next week as I go over my July reads, tell you all about them, tell you if they were worth reading. Hope you have a great day and happy reading.